A show that tackles the big issues affecting the BVI and the rest of the Caribbean. Searches for answers to today's big questions and gives viewers a unique perspective on developing stories. Follow the big story with me, Kathy Richards, only on GTV. This show is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Cyril B. Ramney Tortola Pier Park, NV Salon, Spa, Nail and Barbershop, the Wellness Center, Medical and Behavioral Health Clinics, Tisley Cross, Deliciously Smooth Cider, and Digicel, simply more speed, reliability and entertainment. This is The Big Story. I'm Kathy Richards. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition with me. On set, no stranger at all by any means. Honorable Carvin Malone, at-large representative here in the Virgin Islands, and currently being a very strong advocate in pushing the One VI agenda, which is looking at how do we move forward in this constitutional reform period that we are going through. Honorable Malone, as always, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Well, thank you very much for having me in what we call the series.
The series, yes.
Because it is critical that we are here on the 31st of January. It is the date set by the Constitutional Review Commission as to the end of the consultation period, although I would be asking for extension of submittals because we are now beginning to have keen interest in the Constitution, and we want to afford all those persons who would like some input in this to be afforded the opportunity to put it through. So late though it be, however, the 3 months was always suspect because it came in the middle of Christmas. So, the month of December, you're either having a staff party or you're waiting, if you're kids, for Santa Claus, or if you're parents, to find how you're going to play Santa Claus.
Okay, so well, you give me a great starting point there because I've not heard prior to now, the need that may arise and has arisen for the Constitutional Review Commission to be approached for an extension. How will that go?
Well, this is just as it relates to the consultative period and the time for submission. The actual commission have until the end of June to submit the report. However, I understand that they themselves have asked for the allowed 6 months extension so that they can now submit it either at the end of December or during, on or before the end of December. That being the case, I'm saying that at the front end of it, it would allow us the opportunity, as far as I'm concerned, and I will be advocating for this, that those persons who got on board late in terms of their submittal to be afforded the opportunity to make those submittals during the month of February.
Okay, you have come across quite a few who have submittals that they would love to, but are not able to meet the January 31 deadline?
Well, keenly, because quite interestingly enough, I've been invited by the college to address a number of students, young adults, who would like to ask more, be better informed, and to participate, if they could, in the particular process. They now have a keen interest. I think it's a civic group, one in which, studying the BVI, from whence we came. And I would, I welcome the opportunity, number one. Number two, there are those persons who, in different civic organizations, are interested in just answering some of the questions, because remember, this all came, although we are 72 or 73 years now going into the Constitution, there are those folks who basically like an insurance policy. It's only when the storms are done or the crash is done that you go read the fine prints. So there are a lot of people that are actually reading the fine print at this time.
Awesome.
And I think that is a good thing.
Yes, yes, because one of the things that we know we've been constantly hearing is that appeal for persons to pay attention to the what this involves and to get involved. Through this, but while we'll come in a very short moment to the crux of this, going through the paces, you just mentioned of the HLSCC inviting you. Have other groups been inviting you throughout this period? Because we know that we have seen you as an individual pushing in different ways. But have you been invited to other groupings, to audience?
Oh, yes. In fact, I was invited by the Seacoast Bay Methodist Church to present after the service. Now, I thought it was to a single class. I didn't know the invitation was given to the entire congregation.
No.
But that proved not to be the best time. So we have rescheduled that time so that we can actually go and talk, and based on what is there, because we work in hand in glove with the commission in terms of the education process. It is important for people to understand this. This is not any contest. This is working hand in glove because the Constitution is everybody's business. It is the highest law of the land, and it should be understood by all, especially in these times. These are trying times, and we have some, as one will say, we have some difficult days ahead. And we have to make sure that everyone have an understanding. Because while I'm not here to advocate one position or another, I am here to say that whatever information is needed to assist the population in making up his mind on what particular self-determination means, the different aspects of it, or any other chapter in the Constitution, there is only one that you probably can't change. Well, maybe there are others, but one. Once you are a overseas territory of the United Kingdom, then that 119th verse in there says, it is reserved unto His Majesty to make laws for and on behalf of the Virgin Islands.
Throughout this process, two other areas, have you seen a growing interest or an increased interest among the younger population of the territory in this process? Well,
we've been advocating for this, and I am pleased to say it is now building. And when we are done, say at the college and other particular areas, I am sure that during the particular process we will have increased. But let us not lose hope, because once the Constitutional Review Board has their work to do in terms of writing up the report, this report is to be submitted to the House of Assembly. Once the House of Assembly is done looking at the recommendations, a particular review or a negotiation team who will travel to the United Kingdom to look with the foreign, to meet with a team there, the actual foreign minister of the UK and other persons, then that team will be the one who will negotiate the final points as to what comes into the order. So the education on the Constitution should be like voters' registration, continuous, and especially between now and when that team goes to the United Kingdom to view or to negotiate the terms and conditions or what items will be changed in the Constitution, then we have an opportunity. Because in addition to what the Commission might find, if between now and then, when it goes to the House of Assembly, there's overwhelming support for any particular issue or point, then we can't stop there. Because it is only when the order in council is made in terms of issuing in a new constitution, then is when you have to wait another 20 years. So if you can influence whatever it is that you have to within the next 30 days, within the next 9 months, for instance, then the time to do it is now.
Okay, and now the grassroots level of people, the people that some people would want to say, oh, it's not are the unlearned, but what we find coming from the so-called grassroots people are some of the most brilliant ideas.
Sure.
They're some of the most brilliant minds that we have around. Have you been able to infiltrate that category of people to see what their mindsets are like?
Well, what we're doing is this. We are deliberately taking it to the people. There's some call that I've made to the influencers, I call them.
Okay, yeah.
Persons who can put on a, my nephew's not going to like me for this, but persons who could put on a Fat Man race and get 2,000 people. persons who could put on a horse race and get 5,000.
Yeah.
Persons who can do it. So we have to, if the mountain isn't coming to Muhammad, Muhammad goes to the mountain. So at the end of the day,
and all of those.
Yes, we'll have to go to, to all of the persons who can influence, because it is not a subject that will draw a crowd, but it is a subject that will affect a crowd.
A multitude.
A multitude of
Awesome.
persons.
And let's come now to this first submission that you would have made to the Constitutional Review Commission. Give us a rundown. What you said, this is one of.
Yes. Okay, great. Well, first of all, if you dare to have a computer, dare to have anything, then you must have seen this.
Yes.
By now.
Familiar logo.
Yes, okay, good. We started this particular exercise stating that we have to reach to a point where we're not just fighting against everything that somebody else send away. We have to determine what it is important for us. What do we want for the Virgin Islands? What are we prepared to fight for? Because it's not every mound is a hill. It's not every hill is a mountain. And it's not every mountain you plant your flag on. So we have to determine and harness, bring together our particular skills and our energies to fight for that which we have determined. And in so doing, as we know, as we said at the very beginning, there were 15 terms of references that were approved. 5 originally when the House of Assembly met in early 2021, I think it was. And because of the pandemic, we were unable, so it must have been 2020. So because of the pandemic, we were unable to proceed with what was intended to be a 2-year exercise. So when the Commission of Inquiry came on board, then there were 10 additional terms added to this. And so the 15 terms and conditions were issued. In the One Agenda program, there were people-centered items that we needed to look at, because you will remember me, or you would remind me if I don't tell you, of a particular concept that we have to build confidence of leadership of our people, by our people.
Yeah.
There are folks who say, well, only stress on the positive. Don't call out the negative. But the reality is the reality.
Yeah.
We have to build that confidence.
Yeah.
So what is it that is required in order for us to build it? We talked of making sure that referendums are, how you trigger a referendum is clearly stated, whether in the additional laws to be amended or placed in the body of the Constitution. We talked about recall provisions, so that if you have a person who runs afoul, not doing their job, and there is a test, not an overnight bad feeling test, but the particular area, the district, or the persons who might be aggrieved, must be able to convince enough persons, whether it's a simple majority or a supermajority, that a referendum must happen, or whatever the triggering mechanism is, yes? And that is one particular area. Term limits for leadership, premier, deputy premier, maybe, because some folks are unclear as to whether or not that is democratic. Term limits.
Okay.
Because if the persons want to have a leader for 10 terms, why should it be illegal? But there are some strong thoughts on that because you have to win.
Yes.
You have to win in order to be there for
Yes.
10 terms and so forth. And you have whether or not the premier and deputy premier should be elected at large.
Okay.
You have concepts as to, so all of these come into play, whether or not the time is now that the provisions made in the 2007 Constitution, if it is time for Anegada and Jocelyn Dyke
To have their own
to have their own representatives and become a district. It opens the question. So we were able to get Dr. Amber Whitley Pekel to voice that over the particular program that we have on Tuesdays. And she eloquently stated the position that is now an area for debate. What someone else have told me and what I've begun to do some research on as it relates to the particular issue as to whether or not the populations in these two islands would have an unfair advantage over a 2,000 population district, 1,500 population versus 300 or 250. So the concept of proportionate voting in the House of Assembly could be explored. In the House of Assembly, for every 100 person or parts thereof that is registered in a district, you can have one vote. So if you have 300 in one area, 3 votes. If you have 3,000, 30 votes.
30.
And if you have 1,500, 15. So you have proportionate voting as it relates to that particular issue. But besides that, then I think the argument will become how small is too small, how big is too big in terms of being a representative in the House of Assembly.
I guess that has a whole lot to do with the size. Also, a factor to look at is the size of your population.
That's correct.
In the various areas, catchment areas. But if we to look carefully from the provisions that you would have highlighted there, where do you see the strongest lean of people? Where is the strongest conversations happening?
Okay, the strongest conversation is concerning the self-determination aspect. Okay, let's just go through that and we'll do it very quickly.
Yeah.
But it must be concise so that they have an understanding of it, right? From in 1938, Hope Stevens, H.R. Penn, J.R. O'Neill, and the others, they advocated for the return of the Constitution. It was denied in 38. In 47, it was accepted in a conference in St. Kitts. It was denied by Commissioner Cruikshank.
Cruikshank, yeah.
We had the march in 1949. It was returned in 1950. Elections in 1950. 1962, they had the breakup of the West Indies Federation. We had an opportunity to see whether or not we were going to be part of the independent run, like in Guyana, like in Trinidad, like in Dominica, and we refused because we said we were not ready. We needed to know what these 3 options would be. 1, associated states. 2nd, in terms of integration. And 3rd, in terms of independence. But we did not have the network or the institutions that will support that. So the leaders of that day said no. Fine. In 1959, just taking you 2 years back, there was a concept of going from the membership system to a full ministerial system. Some of the legislators said no. Most of the people said no. We cannot afford for the leaders of that day to be dictators. So we want to take our time and study what that means. So it was not until 1967 that we got the full ministerial or partial ministerial system. So there was a resistance back then in terms of the fear of leadership, even from back then. 1976, the United Nations led a delegation to the Virgin Islands to explore the concept as to, since it was rejected in 62, here we are in 76, how far along are you in learning more about this self-determination concept. The three choices is not just about independence. It is about associated states integration independence. It was again rejected because it was felt that we ourselves weren't ready. Again, we needed to learn more. So here comes the Constitution Review of 2005 that gained us the Constitution of 2007. Interestingly enough, in my research now, we have the Labour Party of the day had a mindset that as a Virgin Islands, you should take the opportunity to explore more the concept of self-determination. What is it you want to do? And in so doing, it allowed the House of Assembly, which was then the Legislative Council, to write up their terms of references, to choose which members sat on that commission. I happen to have been one of them. So from 2005 to 7, they were prepared, the UK was, to assist us in having a constitution that would be as close to the self-determining factor as it can get. They said that the Bermuda model was not going to be accepted because a full cabinet system was not envisaged even back then. But since they did not take that other step, then the UK, Bermuda was stuck with it. So we had to make a decision back then, and we were able to get a hybrid version of cabinet with the governor still as chairman or as a chairperson. We were able to get the actual Security Council, Attorney General, DPP, Prerogative of Mercy Committee, and all of these particular instruments. But what is most important is what is in the preamble of the Constitution. There are 3 distinct paragraphs in there which states that we would be allowed to follow and build on the institutions necessary to support self-determination. Number 1, the people of the Virgin Islands have a desire to be self-determined. Number 2, and number 3, that the United Kingdom, being the Labour government, will do all within its powers to assist, to facilitate, to put all of these institutions in place. That was based on what we have. So this is why we had such a big leap in our Constitution of 2007.
And so we're gathering that, yes, if you, from the little history that you would have given, you've constantly said, we weren't ready. We weren't ready.
Yeah.
We weren't ready. We're hearing now we are somewhat ready. A great number of people still not sure what this really means, hence the education that you're pushing. But what you're saying here from that key preamble area there is that the United Kingdom itself is saying, look, in sense, we're ready to give you guys what you want.
That's correct. And but there was a shift in 2010, 2011, when the conservative government and the mixed government came in. There was a shift from that concept of let us prepare you to we will rather you stay.
Okay.
You have the right to go, but we'll rather you stay. And that then became the advent of the protocols for effective financial management. It came into the Global Britain initiatives. It came into the white papers. It came into all of those areas, which basically, look, because even in a particular article that was written in August of last year, it talked about, just like how they tell in Scotland, we are bigger together, we are better together. And they basically have said of the territories, given your biodiversities, given your economies, given all of what is favorable in your geographic location, we are better together.
Awesome. Okay.
So there's no from the 2010 when that shift in philosophy took place, there's no overwhelming desire, as far as I have concluded now, to build those institutions. So this is what submittal number one is all about.
Awesome.
Number one is that you have the words of the C24 or Article 73, which states that you would assist, United Nations will assist in the education process so that nations could then make up their minds. Number two, you have in the preamble of the Constitution an undertaking to assist. But in the body of the Constitution, those particular areas are not there. Like a self-determination commission is not there. So we need to put that there.
Okay.
And any other institution that supports moving it forward there so that folks can then make up their minds. But one of the things we asked for is, what are the 5 areas? While the United Nations only recognized 3, associated state, integration, independence, we have added another 2. Because there are those persons who, if Jesus was to come down, they won't trust leadership of our people, by your people, for whatever the reason, whatever the cause. But they must know what the pros and cons of it is. United Nations have set up institutions specifically to move all of the non-self-governing territories into self-governance. And they only recognize 3, as I mentioned before, over and over: associated states, integration, independence. But we have placed in there the choice of remaining as a British overseas territories in a modernized fashion.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. They say no matter how modern it becomes, a colony is a colony is a colony. But let's educate the people as to what it is. Let's educate them as to what the other 3 are: associated, integration, independence. But we have also thrown in there being a republic.
Okay, which is, if you were to choose personally, you would rather go.
Well, that was a brilliant way of asking the question. But if I am to educate persons, I'll educate them as to all 5.
Wow, yes, awesome. The clock is always on us, and I see the on-air time is just like doop, 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 final seconds. But from here, in closing, 30 seconds, what's the next step? We heard that you're going to be
the next step is to make sure that everyone understands that there is an education process that must take place, whether it's 24 months or 36 months. There is a need for us to set a referendum date, 2 years down the road or 3 years down the road. There's a need for us to put all of those institutions that are necessary to support us in whichever decision that we make. There's a need to strengthen our justice system so that we don't equate those who may want to be afoul of the law into whether or not we have the opportunity to move our political status forward. The justice system must be allowed to work. And you cannot be afraid to be educated as to what choices you have. It is a 60 somewhat years later, you still want to learn about the 3 choices. There's something wrong. So we have to be able to open up our minds and be concentrating on that 2 or 3 year period as to when the education will do. So that is the sole purpose of this, not to push anyone over the other. Yes, I have my personal views, but that is not the purpose of the One Virgin Islands agenda.
It's for everyone. And on that, we will say that the series will continue.
That's correct.
Because you're going to be back here for us to continue the conversation as we progress.
Well, before you leave, I know every other time, but I'm going to add one other area. Member of Parliament Goldsmith will be coming in the Virgin Islands this week.
Yes.
To meet in concentration in terms of the Order in Council. That will be one of the main topics that he have. It is topical. It is necessary for us to understand that this order in council exists, that suspends government, suspends House of Assembly, suspends
at the click of a finger.
At a click of a finger, and that we have to understand that it is here. So if, and I hope not, if it happens, I don't want anyone caught by surprise and saying that Calvin Malone didn't say.
All right.
Thank you.
And the series will continue. Thank you so much for your time, Honorable Malone, as always. And I want to thank you for your time to spend with us here and The Big Story. I'm Kathy Richards. Thank you so much for joining us.
We know that where you choose to bank matters, and it is your vote on what your funds do in strengthening our community. As your official Bank of Paradise, we invest and support the lifeblood of our economy by helping in the realization of personal goals for homeownership, education, and entrepreneurial visions, which support small businesses. We make it our place to connect with persons and worthy causes, and we have been doing so for more than 30 years. Where your money goes and what your dollars empower are your choice. And we thank you for choosing us, a bank that gives where it matters the most, for you, for our community, and a happier tomorrow. The National Bank of the Virgin Islands.
Everyone looks to the future, but no one truly knows what the future holds.
The number of people under the age of 20 with type 2 diabetes could increase by 49% by 2050. Let it be known that we all have a 30% chance of developing hypertension.
Globally, more than 300 million people of all ages suffer from depression.
More than 60,000 young adults aged 20 to 39 are diagnosed with cancer each year.
Obesity leads to problems such as stroke, heart disease, and kidney failure.
No matter your race, age, or color, we are all at risk.
These diseases can be managed or prevented if caught early.
But with the right medicine and the right doctors to keep us on a path to live a robust and healthy life,
we will live well.
There are many ways to enjoy life, like so many ways to count on Popular.
Plug into Digicel Plus and get even more entertainment with Disney Plus included. The best of Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, and National Geographic all in one place. Whenever you want, plug into Plus to enjoy Disney Plus and much more with a home fiber bundle. Sign up today. Digicel Plus.
Thank you.